The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own god, and they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, so that we will not perish." Then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they asked him, "Tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you?"
He answered, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and dry land." This terrified them, and they asked, "What have you done?" They knew he was running away from the Lord, because he'd already told them so. The sea was getting rougher and rougher, so they asked him, "What should we do to make the sea calm down for us?" "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," he replied, "and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you."
Instead, the men did their best to row back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried out to the Lord, "Please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, Lord, have done as you pleased." Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. At this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him.
Now the Lord provided a huge fish that swallowed Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights.
Thank you so much, guys. Do have a seat. Jeremy, do you want to give me back the microphone? Thank you very much. Now, if you've got that open, do keep it open. Page 928 in the Bibles, and we're going to be going through that together. So, excuse me. Let me introduce you to Jonah. So, Jonah was a prophet. That means he's someone who speaks God's words to people. And he lived in the 8th century BC. So 2,800 years ago, something like that. And he lived in the land of Israel. And Israel was having a great time. It was prosperous, successful, the borders were expanding, and he was a prophet there. But what you know Jonah for is for being swallowed by a big fish, isn't it? That's what we all know Jonah for. I expect lots of you have probably heard this story before, maybe as like a kid's storybook or something, you know, Jonah and the big fish or something like that. But you see, the book of Jonah, it's not actually about Jonah, and it's not actually even about the big fish. It's about what God is like and what his people are meant to be like. So it's my hope that as we go through this book over the next 4 weeks, we'll see a bit more of what God is like and a bit more of what we as his people are meant to be like. This week, we've got one big simple thing we're going to see about God, and it's that he is sovereign. He is king over all things. And we're going to see it in 4 different ways, though. So the first one is that God is sovereign over all people everywhere. Let me read for you verses 1 and 2 again. So the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, "Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me." So the wickedness of a city has come up before God. this city, Nineveh. Now, Nineveh's not in Israel. It's not in God's land for God's people. It's actually the capital city of a completely different empire, the capital city of the Assyrian Empire. Now, if Nineveh were to walk on stage in a pantomime, they're the pantomime baddie, and you would boo and you would hiss, because they're wicked. Like, one of the other prophets describes the city of Nineveh. In Nahum chapter 3, it's described as a city of blood, full of lies, full of plunder, never without victims. The crack of whips and the clatter of wheels, charging cavalry, flashing swords, many casualties, piles of dead, bodies without number. People stumbling over the corpses. Nineveh is really wicked. They're really awful as a city. And because God is sovereign over people, he's king over all people everywhere, he's got something to say about this. He's not just going to let them keep on being wicked, because he has the right to their obedience. Now, let me ask you all a question. Some of you, this question might be really easy. So if you live at home with your mum and dad, this is a pretty easy one to remember. But if you're not at home anymore with your mum and dad, then maybe remember back. Okay? And I want you to put your hands up if your mum or dad would care if your room was messy and it spilled out into the rest of the house. Whose mum or dad would care if there's a good amount? I was about to say Boca, I'm surprised. No. Yeah, okay. I think most people's parents, if you're at home and your room's really messy and it spills out into the rest of the house, they'd have something to say about that. Now, everyone who had their hand up, just keep your hand up. I want you to keep your hand up if your parents would care if one of your friends' room in a completely different house, somewhere completely different, if they would care if that room was messy. Oh, yeah, it's okay. There's maybe one very picky parent out there, but actually, you don't care if it's in somebody else's house, because it's not your responsibility, yeah? But everywhere is God's house. God is king of everywhere. So when there's a mess, he's got something to say about it. So even though this mess is in a completely different country, in a completely different city, God's got something to say about it, because he's king of all people everywhere and has the right to these people's obedience. Now, it would actually be perfectly reasonable for God to wipe out this city. It's so awful. It would be reasonable of him to send an army or fire from heaven, but that's not what he does. He sends a prophet. And so that's where Jonah comes in. That's where we get here. And we see in verse 3 how he sends Jonah. And he sends him to Nineveh. So he sends him to Nineveh, but Jonah, what does Jonah do? He goes completely the other direction. He goes to Tarshish. So Nineveh is east over the desert. Tarshish is west over the ocean. So instead of going east, he goes west to Joppa, the port. He gets in a boat, and then he starts heading to this place, Tarshish, which is in Spain. It's about as far the opposite direction as he could imagine. But as Jonah does this, we get to see something else about God, about how he is sovereign. He's not just sovereign over people, but he's sovereign over nature. Because as Jonah's going along in the boat, verse 4, then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. Did you see that? God sent this storm. It wasn't just a freak accident of nature. God sent the storm. And it's not just any old storm. It's such a violent storm that the ship thinks it's going to break up, and the sailors, they start chucking their cargo overboard, all of their profit into the sea. Now, when sailors who spend their whole lives on the sea, when they are freaking out and they're praying to any god they can and they're chucking their cargo overboard, it's a really bad storm. Has anyone here ever been in a storm at sea? Yeah, a couple of people. I've not, but I can imagine it's terrifying. And so to give us a bit more of a picture of it, I found an account of an American guy back in 2001. He was out in a storm in the ocean, and he wrote this as his sort of reflection on this. He said the first thing that happened was that the temperature dropped. The sky turned green, which astonished me. The sea at first was flat calm, but soon there were rollers. The boat rode over them, no problem, but they got bigger. The sea was sort of blue, green, grey, and foam was flying through the air. If you went out on deck, it actually stung your skin as it whipped your face. Even though it wasn't sunny, you had to wear sunglasses to protect your eyes. Now, when I say it really hurt, I mean it really hurt. It was like someone cracking a whip on your skin. Then, the rain and thunder and lightning started, and the big waves came in. Our boat had a giant searchlight on top, and we put it on. Even though it was only late afternoon, it was as dark as if it were midnight. And then he goes on. And the lifeboat ends up coming loose on his ship, and so he has to go out and do something about it. Like, maybe close your eyes and imagine this sort of scene that's happening. It was a struggle to get the door open against the wind. I crawled out of the door on my belly and was soaked instantly. Not just rain either. Waves were hitting us on the side. I could barely open my eyes. My sunglasses were blown from my face into the ocean, gone forever. I wanted to throw up from seasickness and fear. Every time the boat lurched, I came off the deck an inch or so. You don't know lack of control until you've been on a pitching boat where even gravity disappears for microseconds, and you lift off the bench and then slam into something else. The waves come from any direction, and when they hit, the fiberglass thumps, and you expect the boat to split in half. There's nothing you can do except hold on and trust your life to the guy behind the wheel. Now, I've done many scary things. I was a skydiver in the 80s and 90s. I was stabbed in an alley. I was in a hot air balloon crash where we were almost electrocuted by power lines. I've been in a serious accident, nearly killed by a car. But nothing prepared me for the fear of being in that cabin in the middle of the ocean during that hurricane. It seems your life is ending in slow motion and you have no control. Nothing is predictable. All you can do is look at the door of the cabin and plan to get through it if the water starts coming in through the bow. After that, who knows? That's the sort of storm that God sent. That's the sort of storm that God is in control of. You know, he sent it, and the storm gets worse and worse and worse. And this blows the sailors' conception of God completely. They thought the Lord, he was just some local God in Israel. But no, they come to learn, just like we did earlier in the service, that he's the Lord, the God of heaven who made the sea and the dry land. He's God everywhere, and he's the one who's in control of nature. And as the sea gets rougher and rougher, they eventually chuck Jonah overboard. And as they do, the sea suddenly goes calm. The storm was sent by God, and the calm was sent by God. This was no freak accident. God was in complete control of it. And then in the middle of this episode, so we see that God's in control of nature. He's the king over all people everywhere. But in the middle of this episode, we get to see something else, something a bit more little and detailed. Let me read to you verse 7 and 8. This is when the sailors are deciding whose fault it is. The sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots to find out who's responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So casting lots, that's like rolling dice. And so the Bible's not saying this is a good way of making decisions, but this time God controlled it so that it showed that Jonah was responsible for the calamity that they were in. And it's not just a one-off that God controlled the roll of some dice. No, Proverbs 16 verse 33 says this: "The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. Now, I wonder, is anyone out there feeling lucky? I need one volunteer. One volunteer. Somebody, come on up. It's nothing too strenuous, nothing too difficult. Yeah, Ade, you're a solid, reliable man. Come on up. Now, I've got 10 dice here, and I'm going to ask Ade to roll 10 sixes for me. Here you go. So, before he does it, 10 sixes. Any maths whizzes out there? Guesses, what's the probability of that? 1 in what? 1 in 60 million, okay? 1 in 60 million. Go on, Ade, roll us 10 sixes. He got 2. Round of applause. Cheers, Ade. Better luck next time. But it's not luck. Actually, it's not luck. God's in control of even the roll of these dice now. God was in control of that. And it's not just dice. God's in control of all this stuff that we see as random. God is sovereign over random stuff, over chance. You see, it's not just dice even that God's in control of. He's in control of even how atoms move. He's in personal control and knowledge of where every single electron in this universe is right now. There is nothing that is beyond his ability to control. There's nothing. God has to wait for the outcome and, I'll see how that goes and then make a decision. No, God's in control. He's in control. He's sovereign over chance. So God's sovereign over people everywhere, sovereign over nature, sovereign over chance. The fourth and final one, he's sovereign to save people. In verse 13, we see how the men in the middle of the storm, they did their best to row back to shore, but they couldn't because the sea grew even rougher. Their human efforts, they tried all they could, but they couldn't save themselves. And yet, God saved them. He gave them calm. In fact, even Jonah, chucked into the sea to drown, he saved him by providing this big fish to swallow him up. God physically saved both these groups of people, but actually, even more than that, God spiritually saved these sailors. These are pagan sailors. They were crying out to any god they could imagine just moments ago, but God saves them, and in response, they offer him sacrifices. They offered a sacrifice to the Lord, and they made vows to him. This is just like God commands his people to do. God saves these pagan people who've never heard of him before to be his people. It's quite amazing. And it's ironic that he does this even through Jonah, his disobedient prophet, who's running away the exact opposite direction from what he's meant to do. Jonah is meant to go to Nineveh to tell people about God, but he's like, no, I'm going to Spain. But on the way, God uses him to tell people about God, even though he doesn't mean to. That's how in control of saving people God is. He's in control of all who are going to come to faith. God is sovereign over people, over nature, over chance, over even who's saved. He's got this universal, all-encompassing power. And so the question that comes to us, which is the question we're going to ask each week as we're going through Jonah, is if God is like this, how should we respond? And the quick answer is not like Jonah. How did Jonah respond? He was rubbish. He consistently disobeyed God. God said, go east to Nineveh. He was like, nah, I'm going to Spain. He consistently disobeys God. And the direction of his journey shows the direction of his heart. You see, going to Tarshish, he said, I'm going my way. Instead of going to Nineveh, to go God's way. He persistently persists in my way rather than God's way. His whole journey is that wrong direction. And the description in the Bible even sort of points it out to us. He goes down to Joppa. He goes down into a boat. He ends up going down into the depths of the sea. It's the wrong thing. He's going the wrong way. And yet, as he's going this wrong way, he still says the right thing. He's going the wrong way, and yet he says, verse 9, I'm a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. He's a warning to us that it's really easy to be going the wrong way, but still saying the right thing. We all said it this morning. Who the Lord is, the God of heaven who made the sea and the dry land. No, you can acknowledge that and still be persisting in going my way rather than God's way. But God doesn't give up on him. This isn't the end of the story of Jonah. So if Jonah's the negative, what's the positive? Don't be like Jonah. Instead, we should want to obey the Lord. We should want to obey him. And I think there's two reasons for this. Firstly, if God is this powerful, the one who's in control of people and chance and nature and even who's saved, what chance do we have against him? Do you know the ex-wrestler, now actor, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Nods? A few people? He's massive, okay? He's built. If he came into church now and I was like, Dwayne, I'll take you in an arm wrestle, what chance do you think I've got? Nothing, right? These guns have got nothing on Dwayne. And it's like that. If I want to arm wrestle God and say, I want to go my way, and God's like, no, you're going to go this way, I've got no chance. It's even more ludicrous than me arm wrestling the Rock. It's me like trying to arm wrestle an avalanche. Like there's no comparison. But the Bible doesn't just teach us that God is a tyrant. It doesn't teach that might makes right. Instead, we should want to obey God because his awesome power is coupled with the second reason, his great goodness. He is so good. You remember right back in verse 1 and 2, the wickedness of this city came up before him, and he could have just wiped them out. But he didn't. He sent Jonah on a rescue mission to them instead. That's what God is always like. He is good all of the time. He is good all of the time. He is perfect. He doesn't do anything wicked. And actually, in all that he doesn't do it for his own good. He doesn't get anything from this. All that he does is for our good. And so we should want to obey him because we can't stand up to him, but he's also wanting what's for our best. Now, I'm sure many of you who've been Christians for a while will have your own experience of this, but let me share from my life that I know from my experience that life goes so much better when I go God's way than when I'm persistent thinking I know best. But I still think I know best a lot of the time. It's really hard to want to go God's way because I think I know best. I'm going to do what I want. I see what I think's good, and I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And it's hard to want to go God's way. But actually, when I go my way, which is different to God's way, I'm depriving myself of something better because I can't come up with a plan that's going to be as good as what God's plan for me is. And so when I go my way, I'm actually selling myself short. There's something way better about going God's way. There's so much out there in society which seems appealing to us, but God calls us to turn away from. All sorts of things that are prized out there that we say, that's the way to an easy life or a good life or pleasure or happiness. From laziness and dishonesty to sleeping around and getting drunk. We're told by people around us that these things make life easy and good and happy and nice. But actually, true pleasure lies in going God's way. If we learn the lesson from Jonah, we'll see that obedience and going God's way is where happiness lies. The Christian author C.S. Lewis wrote some words which I really enjoy on this. He said this: "It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition, when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We're far too easily pleased. We simply settle for what our mate says is good, rather than what the Lord Almighty, the God who made the sea and the dry land, has got planned out for us in his kindness and wisdom. God is sovereign. He is the king, and he has the right to our obedience. But that obedience is also where delight lies. Jonah shows us the sort of folly of going my way. It doesn't work out. And the question is, will we learn from him? And the question I want to leave you thinking about is this: who do you want to run your life? Whose way do you want to go? There's two choices. Maybe you've been a Christian a long time and you can quickly and easily say, I want to go God's way. Praise God, that is wonderful. Let me ask you, is that true of every part of your life? Is there any area that you're holding back and saying, I'm just going to keep my way in this bit? But maybe for you, you're still investigating. You're looking into Christianity. You're thinking things over. Well, then keep thinking through that question. Who do you want to run your life? Because I promise you, in choosing between these two ways, that the Lord's way is way better. Let me just give you a moment and then I'll pray. Father God, we acknowledge you as the Almighty One, the God of heaven who made the sea and the dry land, the one who is sovereign over all things. Would you please help us to acknowledge you as King in our lives? Might we learn the lesson of Jonah? Might we not be foolish in following after his way, after our way, but will we see the goodness of living for you? Please would you help us in that, in the practicalities, the day-to-day of life, when it's so much easier to just want to go our own way. Would you give us wisdom and strength and discipline to turn from that and instead go your way? We ask for your Spirit's help in this as we seek to live for you this week. Amen.